You're 21 times more likely to close a lead if you can respond within 5 minutes as opposed to
Nice.
24 hours later. A lot of historic sort of lead capture systems, and you see these on people's websites. The websites become the sort of the funnel that people sort of push people to, or to a phone call to your receptionist. And if that goes to an email which disappears into your inbox, and
Sure.
maybe you don't check it because you've got a job the next morning or whatever it happens to be. That customer's sitting there going, well, I've got an issue. The reason I called you, or the reason I got in touch, was to have this issue solved, and you're not the only person in the market that can solve that issue. And so what we see with that is that if you're not responsive and getting onto it quickly, you're going to find that those potential customers literally leak out and go to a competitor.
G'day, Tim, mate. So we're talking about systematization. This is going to be part of your contribution to our Future-Proof You event, right? So what I want to know, and it's actually something I've heard a bit from you on, and I think it's a really good point to raise with business owners, is how do you propose we not only systematize things in our business, but how do we prioritize that systematization? How do we bring it in a way that's going to actually kind of work in with our current need?
Yeah, really good question, Chris. I think what I'll do is preface this by saying I think most business owners at a certain stage of maturity in their business recognize that introducing systematization, automation, AI tools now are going to give them a huge productivity and performance boost for their sales and marketing activity. Right? I think that's a kind of just a given. If that one of the things that I look at and use with our clients is a model we call F.O.C.U.S, and what to focus on. And it's not always necessarily the really obvious things. Okay, so you might say, a lot of people say, you must have an AI chatbot. Okay, great, all right. Or you must automate your onboarding process for new customers. And I think one of the things that I encourage people to use this sort of F.O.C.U.S model to do it, right? And F.O.C.U.S stands for frustration and frequency is F, right? How often is this thing and how frustrating is it? And when we start to look at all the things we can do, we can now start to rank these things of say, well, it's not very frustrating and it doesn't happen very frequently. That's going to score low, This thing is a huge pain in the ass for me and my team because we constantly miss steps and whatnot. And it happens 17 times a day. That's going to have a high weighting, right? But that's not the only criteria that we want to sort of look at. We also want to look at, well, how long has this thing's been sticking around? Is it only something that's popped up this week, or is it something that's kind of hanging on and impacting us for quite some time? Maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years, it might have been hanging around. C stands for customer impact, and I think that's one of the ones we don't often look at enough when we make our assessment about. Well, it might happen a lot, but if it's only internal and doesn't impact our customers' perception of our responsiveness, that can be a thing as well. And we talked briefly off air there about the thing. I think the thing you mentioned has now just gone out of my mind. If it changes our perception, speed to lead was one of the things we were talking about.
Yeah.
That impacts our customers' perception of our responsiveness to their concerns, which might also impact their perception of how we are, going to respond if they've got an issue down the track.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
U stands for underutilized assets, and I think in marketing we have a lot of these. We have assets just sitting all over the place that we don't really use. So we've got all this content we've created that could be put into a knowledge base for an AI chatbot to automatically respond to customer inquiries or customer concerns. So those sorts of things. And S stands for strategy, right? Does this thing fit into our longer term objective, right? If I plan on completely changing my business model in 2 years' time, would I put something in that's only going to have a sort of lifespan of a year, or does this give us leverage for our future business? And when we start to put all those things together, then we can start to work out exactly what is it that we need to be doing to deliver, a business outcome and prioritization of where we should be spending our resources for biggest impact on our bottom line.
So it's like applying the Eisenhower matrix idea to your systematization and looking at that long-term impact as well. Like, that makes a lot of sense. So just for the viewers, mate, let's chuck I'm just going to get you to do the 5 words. So the letter, the F, and a little point, because I'm going to pop in a word in the after edit, right? So if you could just do just quickly, give yourself a couple of seconds between. So we got F. Remind me of these words. So it's F is...
F is frustration and frequency.
Frustration. I'll do the point for you. Okay, for frustration. Okay, cool. Give me the O.
O is overdue. How long has it been outstanding?
Overdue. Outstanding or overdue. Oh, I like it. C.
C, customer impact. Right? Does it impact
impact.
our customers' perception of us and our responsiveness?
So clients and customers. I like that. And then U.
U is for underutilized assets. Do we have something already that we can use, or do we need to create something from scratch?
Nice. And then S.
And every S is for strategic leverage.
Strategic leverage. Cool. I'm really glad that I spelled focus correctly. That could have been awkward. Awesome stuff. Okay, good, mate. No, good. I really like that. I actually think that's... So just thinking ahead to future-proof you, the event on the 27th, are you intending on talking to the focus model at the event? Is that part of the flow of the presentation?
Yeah, look, we'll touch on the focus model in terms of prioritization. One of the things that we're intending to share with people, other than some practical examples of stuff that you can put into your business right now that'll make a big impact on your ability to capture, convert, and keep more clients in a leveraged way. We'll also be looking at what's your roadmap and what sort of things that you should be doing over the next 90, 180, 365 days into 2026.
Nice, good. So one of the subjects you talked about, and it's something we've actually talked about in a lot of the pundits I've followed, this speed to lead, or lead to speed, and then conversion, and the relationship between the two is quite a hot topic lately, and it's quite informative, and it's a powerful part of making your sales and marketing more effective. So talk to me about where systematization is having impact on this particular set of variables, Tim, and maybe just for the audience, in case they don't know, talk about why these variables matter.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things we see when we look at studies on responsiveness to inquiry, you're 21 times more likely to close a lead if you can respond within 5 minutes as opposed to 24 hours later. And a lot of historic sort of lead capture systems, and you see these on people's websites. The websites become the sort of the funnel that people sort of push people to, or to a phone call to your receptionist. And if that goes to an email which disappears into your inbox, and maybe you don't check it because you've got a job the next morning or whatever it happens to be. That customer's sitting there going, well, I've got an issue. The reason I called you, or the reason I got in touch, was to have this issue solved, and you're not the only person in the market that can solve that issue. And so what we see with that is that if you're not responsive in getting onto it quickly, you're going to find that those potential customers literally leak out and go to a competitor.
Yeah, totally. No, it makes a lot of
sense. And if you look at your own behaviour, if you're doing a web search for a particular solution, right, you don't just click on the first website and go, that's the only one I'm going to buy. What you might do is open 3, 4, 5 websites, take a quick scan and go, well, which one do I want to potentially engage with? And then there's a whole bunch of issues around that. Someone might get 2 or 3 quotes, and if you're the quote that comes in a week later, you're less likely to win the job. And so speed to lead is critically important, in the same way that if you call somebody up because that's the call to action you've given somebody, and you don't answer the phone, what do you think they're going to do?
Yeah.
Right? You're already having that
Well, I think
perception
that-
of you for the customer's eyes is, not as responsive and not as available to their need.
Well, it's essentially a first impression by default that you haven't had control over. So the question is, do you want to take better control of that first impression, if you will? And if you think, you can think it, from their perception, that's how it is. You haven't even been involved in it yet, but technically, it's one of their first impressions of you, right? So,
well, absolutely, you're absolutely right. If you were to imagine if you would do this in a group of people,
yeah, exactly.
and you go up to someone and say hi,
yeah. Well,
and then they're sitting there and they're like,
exactly. That's a great way to put it.
oh, hi.
Yeah, exactly.
And that stage you've wandered off. You're going, well, if you don't want to talk to me, fine, I'll go somewhere else.
It makes me wonder as well, is it being magnified, amplified by the current environment where everything's faster than it ever has been, right? Like you use AI to get fast answers. You used to use Google, and that's relatively slow, and that was lightning fast compared to going and finding the Encyclopedia Britannica in Grandad Bernie's, cupboard or whatever, So I feel like people.
I've got a mate who's got a whole set of Encyclopedia Britannica. If you want to buy it, Chris.
I actually would buy that. I actually would. Anyway, mate. Right, cool. I'm going to pause the set and we'll get in. Oh, we are a few seconds over. Oh, that's all right. I'll chop some off and then it'll be fine. Cool. Let me stop that there.